books and you. Reading books. An unpleasant task to be sure, but something people have been forced to do for centuries. She certainly looks bored, and who could blame her? This poor chap has chosen to submit himself to physical torture rather than being forced to read. Nobody likes to read. Certainly not these unfortunate children. I don't know what mischief they got into to deserve such a severe punishment, but you just can't help feeling sorry for them, can you? Streets have become littered with unwanted books, creating a serious health hazard in cities around the world, as well as a safety hazard. At last, mankind is able to escape the terrible tyranny of books, thanks to a marvelous new wonder of modern technology. The audiobook. Yes, now, all your favorite reading materials can be read to you by trained professional narrators. How can that possibly be, you ask? As you can see by this diagram, the narrator speaks into the left side of the audiobook narrating device, while the sound comes out of the right side. Then the raw sound passes through a series of processing chambers. Looks pretty confusing, doesn't it? Well, perhaps we can simplify it so that even those of us who aren't brainy scientists can understand it. There, that's better. All you have to do is follow the numbers. And voila! The narrator's clear, professionally trained voice is emitted by the loudspeaker, making it possible for your entire family to sit around and enjoy the newly created audiobook, assuming that your family consists of two fathers, a mother, and a daughter. Or even better, the entire family can listen to audiobooks separately while enjoying a well-deserved motoring vacation. And it's all thanks to that modern miracle, our friend, the audiobook.
Hi, I'm Dan O'Day. In this third video in our series about narrating audiobooks, you'll hear more from some of David's previous students about what it's really like. I'll also share with you a checklist of some really important things you need to focus on if you want to maximize your success on ACX. And I'll remind you of 3 key mistakes you must avoid when recording audiobooks. As you've probably guessed, David Lawrence and I will be teaching an intensive ACX audiobook masterclass. I'm sorry, I mean David H. Lawrence the 17th. He gets really touchy about that. We'll be opening registration in just a couple of days. I'll have all the details for you in our next video. The people you'll be hearing from on this video are 3 of our beta testers. Each of them began with no audiobook recording experience. Then they studied with David Lawrence. Then, using what they learned from David, each launched their own remarkably successful audiobook careers. In addition to those video clips, in a few shorter clips, you'll hear some really insightful observations for any actor or voiceover person who wants to record audiobooks. And as a special bonus, one of these 3 people in an impromptu performance will recreate his character from an animated Barbie movie.
Hi, my name is Matt Waite. I've been living in Los Angeles about 5 years now. I've known David for 2 of those years. I started in voiceover about 3 years ago. I never really thought about audiobooks, but then had a lengthy discussion with David about it and learned about the website and everything, and started to peek in a little bit and see what was what. Initially, I put up a few of my demos online and kind of half-heartedly auditioned for a few things. Very, very nervous, very unsure of what I was doing, and then not hearing anything back from the authors that I did submit for. Of course, it's disconcerting. But when you're completely outside of your element, it wasn't anything that I was expecting. So this kind of went on for a few weeks. And then, completely out of the blue, I received an email from an author telling me that, oh, your voice is absolutely perfect for this project of mine. Would you mind auditioning for it? And I was like, well, of course I would. And I went ahead and did that, and then lo and behold, he offered me the job, and that was a very exciting moment. It was literally only my third or fourth audition. Usually in the entertainment industry, you're used to going out on 30 or 40 auditions before you book anything. And so, to have 3 or 4 it's amazing. It's a wonderful feeling. Once I had points on the board, I was legitimate. And so offers started coming in from all over. I started getting them like once a week, people offering me to do their entire series for them or to stay on with them as their narrator of choice, which is a pretty nice feeling because at that point you don't even have to audition. They just forward you the documents, which is kind of cool. I finished my first audiobook in October of last year, and I just completed my 23rd a few days ago. A lot of these have been repeat customers. You build relationships with authors, and they just go back to you because it's like it's too easy. It's too easy not to. You've already proven that you can deliver, and so why would they waste their time and energy trying to find someone else when they already know you're a set quality. I got my first audiobook bestseller through a series that I worked on with a science fiction writer. After it reached a certain number of sales, Amazon picked up and started advertising it, and then it was just a complete snowball effect, obviously. So that was really fascinating to kind of sit there and log on every day and see these huge numbers being posted on your unit sales. It was a pretty nice feeling. Another book that I did was offered as a stipend rate, which was $150 per finished hour on top of royalty share. And so with that, I got paid $1,500 up front, which was really nice. And then all of the sales that came on top of that were just icing on the cake for that. And so that was a very lucrative endeavor as well. I initially just kind of would read all the way through, and if I screwed up, I would just go back a few and keep going. Basically what this means is that every time when I would listen through on the back end, I'd have to stop every time and delete the wrong thing and then push the other ones together, and it was just you're stopping and starting constantly. When David taught me the staircase method, my productivity went up at least 75%. That single tool has saved me innumerable hours of editing and hair pulling.
One of the important principles we teach in our masterclass is the tremendous value of becoming, as Matt says, the narrator of choice for a number of authors. Most voice actors think that's all a matter of luck, and without a plan, without a strategy, for them it is a matter of luck. But we encourage you to approach even your very first audition with the goal of becoming that author's narrator of choice. Also, you heard Matt mention learning how to edit quickly. If you're editing audiobooks with the same set of tools that you've applied to traditional audio production for radio or voiceovers, you're not editing as quickly and as efficiently as you should be. If you can increase your productivity by 75%, and you're being paid on a per finished hour basis, in effect, you're tripling the profitability of the titles you record.
My name is Kathy Bell Denton, and I never would have thought that I would have been an audiobook narrator. I'm an actress. I've been an actress a long time, and I've done a little bit of voice work, but not a lot. And the idea that I could create a book on my own in my closet was sort of something I had never thought of. It was kind of a miracle to be able to do something like that, kind of like knitting caps for a business. People knit caps in their houses. I met David, and he was teaching more about voice-over work, and he explained that actors are ideal people to do audiobooks because actors are storytellers. And doing an audiobook, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, is storytelling. He explained what kind of equipment to get, what kind of microphone, the programs that I would need to install in my computer, and that many of them were free. You can do some other programs that aren't free, but you can absolutely produce audiobooks with free software. Perfectly acceptable in the marketplace, audiobooks, which is amazing. So I went to ACX, which is a site where you can connect with authors in order to find people who want audiobooks made. And they allow you to audition for thousands of books. And it's kind of amazing because usually an actor is invited to audition for something. And it makes you sad sometimes because there's only a few things that you're invited to audition for. But on this site, you can audition for anything and everything. And I'm a union member, and what makes it particularly marvelous is everything is union approved. And when you do work that pays a certain amount of money, they take out your union payments, you're getting health and retirement benefits, which is amazing and wonderful. And something you usually can't do without an agent's involvement or some kind of additional help. To be able to get a job so directly is an amazing thing to do. I set up this site, my own personal site, which was free, and which again is amazing because there's a lot of pay-to-plays out there and you have to pay for those. And this is an absolutely free site you can set up your profile on, and you can post an audition on it, but to sort of introduce yourself. But I didn't even do that. I put my name in and a little bit of information, and I went to look for a book to audition for. And I found one that seemed appropriate for me. It was, the main character was an actress, and she was Southern, and I'm from the South. And I came up with about a 5-minute audition piece based on what the author wanted to hear. And I submitted it, and less than 12 hours, I had a note that they wanted me to produce the audiobook. And I felt like the dog who had run after the car and chased it and didn't know how to drive. I wasn't sure what to do. I finally got the microphone out of the box and set it up in the closet, and figured the book was complicated. It was a long book with dual narrators, with a man and a woman, and I thought, well, I just better dive in, and I learned the software to record from my microphone, and I started reading. The book was 18 hours long. When I finished the book, I didn't quite know. I didn't know a lot of things that I later learned from David. I was not editing as I went along. I read the book, and then I had lots and lots and lots of material that needed to be edited. I tried to farm it out to someone, but they didn't quite know what they were doing. And when I submitted it, it was rejected. It wasn't properly mastered. It wasn't properly edited. And I didn't realize that at first. I had trusted someone else when I needed to learn to do it myself. I called David, and David taught me how to edit. He gave me the skills to do it myself instead of having to depend on someone else. Now, I was really lucky because due to some of the things that David had told me, he said a stipend book is a better deal. And a stipend book is a situation where they give you a certain amount of money per finished hour. It was $100. It's ranged from $100 to like $150 since I've been doing this. And this was an 18-hour book. So right away, I was paid for my work. But stipend books also are royalty share as well. So you get the fee per hour, and then you get a royalty share forever. So long as it's for sale, you're going to be able to get a little bit of an income stream for them. And that particular first book, with all its troubled start, has actually done very well. And again, with the stipend, I was paid $1,800 from the very beginning. So the moment it was put up for sale, which takes a couple of weeks, they sent me a check. Since that first book, I've now done 13 books, and I have 3 more in the works. And I've been made an approved Audible producer, which is really quite nice. They actually made me an approved producer after only 8 books, which is unusual. If you read their fine print, usually they wait until you have 25 books and then you have to ask them, but they approached me and gave me this honor, which is kind of cool.
You heard Kathy say what any successful audiobook narrator will tell you. At the end of the day, it's all about telling a story. Even when you're recording nonfiction, you're telling a story. It might be the story of how to save money for your retirement or how to assemble your own ad hoc wireless infrastructure. But your job is to tell the story to someone who really wants to hear it.
I'm Steve Marvel. I've been a professional actor for about 30 years. I stumbled into voiceover several years ago. My agent sent me an audition for a movie for Mattel, a Barbie movie, which I didn't even know they existed. I knew about the dolls, though I'd never played with them. And I got this role in the movie. It was a full-length feature. I played a talking peacock named Azul. And of course, it was a great experience. I've been doing voices my whole life. But after doing this movie, I felt that I wanted to know more. And I really needed more training, because even though it was a great experience, I could tell being in that room, oh, well, there's things these other people are doing that I don't know how to do, or I hope that I'm doing this right, and so forth. I ended up going to an after event. There are free events that the union puts on where they'll bring speakers in, people to talk, and this was a panel with a lot of really big VO people. David was there, and I was really taken with David's knowledge and the way he was able to really say things in a very definitive way and just be like, well, this is what you should do. Here's the answer. After that, I looked him up and started studying with him, and have learned a lot. What I was most interested in studying with David were 2 things really: how to get into audiobooks, largely, but also the entrepreneurial side of voiceover, because that's not covered very much. There's a lot of talk about technique, and there's a lot of talk about where you can go to look for jobs, which he covers as well. But he also would talk a lot about you can make your own work. So that was all very attractive to me. And being on the ACX platform has really been that to a large extent, because you go look for your own work, you go directly to the authors and you audition for them. But then once you've done the audiobook, now what do? I tend to only do projects that I'm going to get paid for off the top, but that's still a product you have out there to market. It wasn't until David showed me exactly how to go through the ACX platform, use it, fill out your profile, how it's going to look when you're submitting auditions and so forth, that I realized, well, this is really easy, and I can do this, and I did. I didn't get my first audition on ACX. I didn't win my first audition. I think I auditioned for 3 or 4 books before I was accepted for a book. Before the author chose me, and it was great because it was a trilogy, meaning that not only was I going to get paid for 1 book, I get paid for a second and a third, and it was during the time that I was recording that Audible ran a contest to voice a book for their platform, for the audible.com name. And I auditioned for that, and lo and behold, I won it, which I'm sure that hasn't hurt my status on my profile on the ACX platform. ACX is really cool because, for one thing, there's no middleman. You don't have to go through a casting director or an agent or anybody else. I'm speaking heresy now. It's you and the authors. So you submit an audition to the author who wrote the book. So when they choose you, you're really what they're looking for. So on the one hand, it's really great to know that you're contacting the end client, that it's just you and them, that you don't have to please somebody else. But it's also great to know that you're now establishing a very personal relationship. It's almost like being on stage and being with an audience, as opposed to having to go through all the sort of steps you have to go through to turn in any other kind of performance, a film performance or a TV performance. As great as those are, but there are so many steps to go through. In ACX, there's one step. You audition, and then you wait, and then you get chosen, and then you deal with the author one-on-one. So it's a very empowering platform.
To have a successful audiobook career, you really should take Steve's advice about looking at this business not just as a performer, but also as an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs don't just sit back and hope someone hires them. They actively work to create their own opportunities. You'll achieve the most success with ACX if you embrace the idea that you're collaborating with the author, rather than serving as a nameless drone who talks into a microphone on cue. That requires you to manage your relationships with your authors, which begins by managing their expectations.
The very notion of you being the one who's in charge, not waiting for them to run the show, you being the one who's project managing this process, that's guided me the whole time in every project that I've done.
For many of the authors on ACX, this is their first experience with audiobooks. They know little or nothing about the process, and they want to work with a professional. They need the reassurance of knowing that you really know what you're doing. If you don't learn to manage the author's expectations, here's what you might end up experiencing.
I got a book from a fantasy book from a writer who had written this series in the 80s and was looking to republish it. And went ahead and completed the first 15 minutes, which were approved, and then went off and completed the rest of the novel. I put it away and started to look for other titles. Didn't hear back from them for quite some time, and then just randomly out of the blue received an email of corrections that were long. There was actually, for the first chapter, was so long, it bordered on the surreal. There was included with that was some downright, nasty comments about my voice quality, and a kind of passive aggressive, backhanded compliments that about my capabilities. I was very shocked. So I contacted David about this, and he was like, okay, let's take a breath. And he was able to show me a way to deal with the situation diplomatically and politely, and then was able to, on top of that, show me how to never let it happen again.
If you establish specific ground rules before you begin recording a new title, you can avoid that kind of unpleasantness and instead devote your attention to creating and sustaining productive relationships with authors. Here's a partial checklist of some really important things you need to focus on if you want to maximize your success on ACX. We cover these in great detail in our masterclass, but you can take this list and run with it on your own. Create a profile that accomplishes more than just listing your credits. Your profile should be an important marketing tool. Before you create your profile, determine precisely what you want it to accomplish. Take advantage of all the ways ACX is willing to promote you. Be sure you've learned how to verbalize visual references before you attempt to record a nonfiction book. Don't think of nonfiction as a genre. It's a broad term encompassing multiple genres. Instead, identify the nonfiction genres for which you are best suited. Be sure you've learned the subtle yet vital differences between a fiction and a nonfiction performance. Learn to edit your performance with maximum speed and efficiency. Before you audition for any job, know what you're going to say when you submit the audition. Identify the genres that are most likely to hire you consistently and to pay the most or otherwise be the most rewarding to you. Before you audition for any job, know what you're going to say if you're offered the job, and it should be more than yes. For voicing fiction, have a consistent framework with which to develop your character differentiation. Don't make it up as you go along with each new title. Always take charge of the author-narrator relationship. Create a system for managing your workflow. You can't afford to temporarily misplace files and information vital to a project. Create a system for managing your work schedule. Anticipate all the likely interactions you might have with a rights holder, and use prepared email templates to respond quickly and appropriately to whatever situation arises. Before you audition for a title, research the author. If you know where to look and what to look for, you'll find all sorts of clues that tell you what type of audition performance is most likely to win the job. I know you've been waiting to hear the animated character from the Barbie movie. I promise that's coming very soon. In this video series, we've spoken very little about the performance aspect of narrating audiobooks. Obviously, that'll be a vital part of our masterclass. Whether you're an actor, voice artist, or radio professional, I want to make sure you benefit from this perspective from Steve Marvel.
The really shocking thing to me about ACX has been what demand there is for actors, experienced actors, not just voices. In the rest of the acting world, you can often get the impression that you are one of 1,000, people who have the right hair color. Therefore, it's just like, who do they feel like choosing that day or whatever. It just, in many cases, it just seems random. Your talent doesn't necessarily seem to come into it. And on ACX, it has really appeared to me as though that's not the case, that they are very much looking for talented voices. It will help you to spend a little bit of time just answering one question, really answering one question, and that is, what does this character I'm voicing, what do they feel? What do they need? What are they trying to do here? And of course it shifts from one character to one character to one character. There may be dozens of characters in a book, but in each and every case, you're not some guy reading something to somebody else, just reading it. You're playing the character. You're being that person in that situation. These are not enormous stretches of imagination. They're simply empathy. Somebody who's been hearing your own voice and using your own voice for a long time, you certainly have a leg up, maybe even on stage actors who haven't been doing voiceover. But again, the most important thing is to forget about the training you might have had in using your voice, because you already know how to do that. What you have to focus on is how you tell the story through the character. And that doesn't necessarily mean making a big change in your voice. There are very successful audiobook narrators who don't change their voices very much to play one character to the other, but there's a perceptible shift in attitude. There's a perceptible shift in what this person wants in this particular moment as opposed to the person he or she is talking to. So it's really just attention to, well, how would I say this if I were in this situation? Which means you have to understand, what is the situation? But it is a book. It's all written down. They've told you all that stuff, so you just read it and understand it and say, okay, I'm in this room, I'm at this time, I'm this person, and this is what I want.
In just a couple of days, we'll be opening registration for our first and only ACX Audiobook Masterclass. As you decide whether to let us help you on this next stage of your life and your career, think about the difference this could make in your life. Having an ongoing stream of paying projects that you look forward to doing, developing relationships with other creative people, namely the authors who write the books you'll be bringing to life. Becoming a celebrity to listeners. When you're the person taking the words the author has crafted and personally delivering those words to the ears of the writer's fans, you really do become a mini celebrity to the people who hear your work. And here are 3 mistakes you really must avoid if you want to succeed with audiobooks: competing for the wrong jobs, slow editing, and paying for the privilege of auditioning. It's ironic that the sites that charge you to audition or to post your demos are the ones that offer the least rewarding work. Here are 4 huge benefits of ACX over those pay-to-play sites. ACX offers you higher-paying jobs. All jobs are open to union and non-union talent. ACX handles royalty share payments. You're not dependent upon the bookkeeping skills of a disorganized author. ACX handles it all. And here's one you haven't thought about yet. When you record a title for ACX, you get the full advantage of Audible's and Amazon's incredible promotion machine. Amazon wants your audiobook to become a bestseller. At those pay-to-play sites, who's concerned about maximizing the sales of the work you produce? No one. When we open registration later this week, you'll have a decision to make. Do you want to continue to go it alone? If you're new to the audiobook field, do you want to stumble your way along, slowly learning by painful trial and error? That, in fact, is what most people do. That explains why you hear grumbling and complaining from some people that narrating audiobooks is just too difficult. Or do you want to hit the ground running, thanks to David's 25 years of expertise? If you've already entered the audiobook field, whether on ACX or elsewhere, are you 100% satisfied with your career, or would you like to take it to a much higher, more rewarding level?
If I had any advice for someone who was thinking about going into audiobooks, I would say it's one of those things that it requires discipline, and it requires guidance. You can go on the website and see that there are literally thousands of people that have put up their samples, and you can see that, without a lot of people just think, oh, I'll just put up my samples and then all the work will come to me, which is not the case at all. You get out of it what you put in. And in order to get out of it the maximum of what you do, you need discipline and you need structure and you need a setup and you need a way to be taught how to do this. Going in the dark, I mean, it really doesn't work. I wouldn't have even known where to begin going on the website. I've had writer friends contact me to walk them through setting up to get their books sold, and I've had narrator friends ask me to help them learn about the website and how to do it. It is not something that you would just pick up and be able to do. It's something that requires a bit of guidance, a bit of teaching, and a bit of support. And to be doing it in the dark, I wouldn't recommend it. I don't think I would have had 1/10 of the success that I've had today if I had just kind of gone in, because a lot of it is having the tools.
If you joined our alert list, be sure to watch your email for notification of when we open the doors for registration. We're about to begin an exciting journey, you and David and me. Until then, however, here is a special message from one of our beta testers, Steve Marvel.
Do that voice from the Barbie.
All right, since it's just you, I'll do it. Normally when people ask you to do the voice, you've mentioned it in a crowd or like 9 people you don't know, and we need to do the voice. It's like now you're on the spot. Great, there's no context. All right, so the character of Azul from Barbie is the Island Princess, the talking peacock. Well, okay, we'll do it, but remember, this was your idea.